The charity gala was a sea of glittering gowns and tailored tuxedos. Crystal glasses clinked, and the air buzzed with polite yet cutting conversation. Amelia felt the weight of 100 pairs of eyes on her, each one a tiny pinprick against her skin. She stood beside Liam, her hand held firmly in his. His hands were calloused, a testament to his life as a farmer, a life that felt 1,000,000 miles away from the polished marble floors of the grand ballroom. Her old university friends, Tiffany and Brianna, glided towards them. Their smiles were as bright and cold as the diamonds around their necks. "Amelia, darling," Tiffany began, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "It is so brave of you to come to an event like this, and to bring your new friend." She glanced at Liam, her eyes scanning his simple, off-the-rack suit. It was clean, it was neat, but it did not scream wealth. In this room, that was a cardinal sin. Liam offered a polite nod. "It is a pleasure to meet you." His voice was calm and steady, a quiet island in the middle of a storm of judgment. Brianna let out a small, tinkling laugh that grated on Amelia's nerves. "We were all so surprised when we heard. After your breakup with Richard, we thought you would be aiming for someone more established, someone from our world." The implication was clear. Liam did not belong. Amelia's grip on Liam's hand tightened. "Liam is the kindest man I have ever met. His world is honest and real," she said, her voice trembling slightly. She hated how defensive she sounded. "Oh, of course, honey. Kindness pays the bills, does it not?" Tiffany retorted, sharing a knowing look with Brianna. "Richard is here, you know. He arrived in his new helicopter. He just closed that massive tech deal. Everyone is talking about it." The words were designed to hurt, to make her feel small, to make her regret her choice. And as Amelia looked across the room and saw her ex-fiancé, Richard, holding court, surrounded by admirers, she felt a wave of humiliation wash over her. Everyone was watching. Everyone was whispering. Everyone was laughing at her, the girl who had thrown away a life of luxury for a poor farmer. They had no idea what was about to happen. Before Liam, Amelia's life had been a carefully curated collection of beautiful things. She lived in a penthouse apartment with panoramic city views, a space designed by a famous interior decorator. Her days were a blur of charity luncheons, gallery openings, and exclusive parties. She was engaged to Richard, a man whose ambition was as vast as his family's fortune. On paper, it was a perfect life, a fairy tale. But Amelia had often felt like a ghost haunting the halls of her own story. With Richard, conversations were about stock prices, acquisitions, and which new power couple they needed to impress. He would compliment her dress, her hair, the way she charmed his business partners, but he rarely asked about her dreams. He never noticed the sadness that sometimes clouded her eyes. She was a beautiful accessory, the final perfect piece in his collection of success. The silence in their shared limousine was often heavier than any spoken words. The emptiness was a quiet ache in her heart, a constant reminder that something vital was missing. The end came not with a bang, but with a quiet realization. One evening, after a tense dinner where Richard had criticized her for voicing an opinion that contradicted one of his clients, she looked at their reflection in the polished elevator doors. She saw a handsome, powerful man and a well-dressed woman, but she did not see a team. She did not see love. She saw a business arrangement. That night, she packed a single bag and left the glittering cage behind. She found Liam by accident. Driving aimlessly through the countryside, trying to escape the city's noise, her expensive car had sputtered to a stop on a dusty rural road. A man in worn jeans and a simple cotton shirt had walked over from a nearby field. That was Liam. He did not ask about her car's brand or the designer of her shoes. He just saw a person in need of help. He towed her car to his farm, and while he worked on the engine, he offered her a glass of fresh lemonade on his porch. His world was so different. It was filled with the smell of freshly tilled earth and blooming wildflowers. It was quiet, but it was a peaceful quiet, not an empty one. With him, Amelia discovered simple joys she had never known. She learned to appreciate the beauty of a sunrise over a field of corn. She found comfort in the warmth of a handmade quilt. They would talk for hours, not about money or status, but about hopes, fears, and the stories hidden in the stars. He saw her, the real her, stripped of all the glitter and glamour, and for the first time, Amelia felt she was truly home. The confrontation Amelia had been dreading arrived in the form of her ex-fiancé, Richard. He moved through the crowd with an air of ownership, a perfectly tailored suit hugging his shoulders. He stopped before them, a condescending smile playing on his lips. He ignored Liam completely, his gaze fixed on Amelia. "Well, well, Amelia," he said, his voice loud enough to draw the attention of those nearby. "I see you have found a new pet project. Is this your attempt at being a woman of the people?" He finally glanced at Liam, his eyes filled with disdain. "Tell me, what is it you do? Grow things? How quaint." Liam met his gaze without flinching. "I am a farmer," he stated simply, his voice even. "I help feed people. I find great value in that." Richard laughed, a short barking sound that made Amelia's stomach clench. "Value? You would not know the meaning of the word. Value is closing a $100 million deal. Value is having a seat at the table where real decisions are made." He turned back to Amelia, his smile turning into a sneer. "And you gave all that up? For this? For dirt under your fingernails and a man who probably cannot even afford the price of admission to this party?" The whispers around them grew louder. People were staring openly now, their faces a mixture of pity and cruel amusement. Amelia felt her cheeks burn with shame. "Stop it, Richard," she pleaded, her voice barely a whisper. "You do not know him." "Oh, I know his type," Richard boomed, gesturing grandly at Liam. "Honest, hard-working, poor. He is a character in a storybook, Amelia, not a man who can give you the life you deserve, the life I gave you." He took a step closer, lowering his voice to a theatrical, conspiratorial tone. "Enjoy playing house in the dirt. But when you are tired of this little fantasy, when you remember what it feels like to fly in a private jet instead of riding in a rusty pickup truck, do not come calling. My world does not have room for failures." That single word, failures, echoed in the sudden silence. It hung in the air, sharp and poisonous. It was a public verdict on her life, her choices, her love. Without another word, Liam gently took Amelia's arm. He did not look at Richard. He did not look at the mocking faces in the crowd. He only looked at her, his eyes offering a silent promise of safety. He led her away from the center of the ballroom, past the sea of judgment, and out into the cool night air. But as the heavy doors closed behind them, Amelia could still hear the sound of their laughter. The ride back to the farm was filled with a heavy silence. The city lights blurred into long streaks of color through Amelia's tear-filled eyes. Each glittering skyscraper seemed to mock her, a reminder of the world she had so recently abandoned. Richard's words echoed in her mind, replaying in a cruel loop. Failures, failures, failures. She sat perfectly still, staring out the window, feeling the chasm between her past and her present grow wider with every mile. Liam drove, his hands steady on the wheel. He did not ask if she was okay. He knew she was not. He did not offer empty platitudes. He simply drove, his quiet presence a comforting anchor in her sea of turmoil. When they arrived at the farmhouse, the familiar scent of night-blooming jasmine filled the air. It was a scent she had come to associate with peace, but tonight it brought no comfort. Inside, Liam flicked on a small lamp, casting a warm, gentle glow across the cozy living room. He led her to the comfortable armchair by the window and then went to the kitchen. He returned a few minutes later with a warm mug of chamomile tea, placing it gently into her trembling hands. He knelt before her, his gaze full of a deep, unwavering tenderness that made her want to weep all over again. "His words were cruel," Liam said softly. "They were designed to hurt you, Amelia. They have nothing to do with us. They have nothing to do with you." She wanted to believe him. A part of her did. But another, smaller part, a part that had been conditioned by years in Richard's world, felt a cold knot of fear. Had she made a terrible mistake? Was she just a fool, living in a fantasy? The next morning, the world seemed determined to prove Richard right. Her phone was a constant buzz of notifications. A popular online gossip column had already posted an article, complete with a blurry photo of them leaving the gala. The headline was, "Socialite Amelia Hart's Shocking Fall from Grace." Her so-called friends sent messages dripping with fake concern. "Are you all right?" they asked. "We are so worried about you." But she could read the triumphant subtext. They were not worried, they were thrilled. She walked out onto the porch, looking at the endless fields. She saw the sweat and toil that went into this life. She saw the mud on Liam's boots, the old repaired fence, the aging tractor in the barn. For a fleeting, terrifying moment, she compared it all to the effortless, sterile luxury of her past. The private jets, the designer clothes, the life where every problem could be solved with a simple phone call. A wave of panic washed over her. She felt lost, stranded between two worlds belonging to neither. She sank into a porch chair, the weight of her choice and the world's judgment pressing down on her with suffocating force. The days that followed were heavy and grey. The initial shock gave way to a lingering despair. Amelia's world had shrunk to the size of the farmhouse, yet she felt more exposed than ever. The final blow came in the form of a phone call from her mother. Her voice was strained, wrapped in a blanket of disappointment. She spoke of the family's reputation, of the embarrassing questions she had to field from her friends at the country club. "We just want you to be happy, dear," she had said. "But is this truly happiness? Or is it some kind of rebellion? Richard is willing to forgive you," he called. The suggestion that she should crawl back, defeated, sent a chill down Amelia's spine. It felt as if the last door to her old life was closing, leaving her stranded. The pressure began to create tiny fractures in the peace she had found with Liam. One afternoon, she found herself snapping at him over a spilled glass of water, her voice sharp and unfamiliar. The frustration and shame that had been simmering inside her had finally boiled over. Liam did not get angry. He simply looked at her, his eyes full of a deep, sad understanding. "This is not about the water, is it?" he asked gently. He said nothing more, but his quiet patience only made her feel worse. She retreated, overwhelmed by guilt, and wandered out into the fields alone. This was her lowest point. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the land, she felt the full weight of her isolation. Richard was right. Her mother was right. Her friends were right. She was a failure. She had traded a world of comfort and security for a life of struggle and judgment. She sat on an old stone wall, pulling her phone from her pocket, her thumb hovering over the icon for an airline app. For a single heartbreaking moment, she considered booking a flight back to the city, back to a life she did not love but at least understood. Later that evening, seeking a distraction, she decided to organize some old books in a dusty, forgotten corner of the living room. As she pulled out a stack of worn farming almanacs, something slipped from between the pages and fell to the floor. It was an old, faded photograph. A much younger Liam stood on a dirt airstrip, his arm around an older man. They were both smiling broadly, but it was the object behind them that made Amelia's heart stop. It was a sleek private jet. It was not a massive commercial plane, but it was undeniably a luxury aircraft. She stared at the photograph, her mind racing. It made no sense. A poor farmer with a private jet. It had to be a mistake. Perhaps he worked at an airfield once. Perhaps it belonged to a friend. But the way he stood there, casual and comfortable, suggested a familiarity that unsettled her. She tucked the photo into her pocket, her hands trembling slightly. The despair that had clouded her mind for days began to recede, replaced by a new, burning emotion: curiosity. For the first time, she realized that the man she loved was a mystery. And this small, impossible clue was a tiny glimmer of light in the darkness. Amelia's mind was a whirlwind of questions. The photograph was a puzzle she could not solve, a secret held within the man she loved. Needing to escape the confines of the farmhouse and her own thoughts, she went for a long walk, following a dirt path that snaked alongside the property. The path led her to a small, charming cottage with a vibrant garden bursting with color. An elderly woman with kind eyes and a warm smile was tending to her roses. This was Eleanor, Liam's closest neighbor. Eleanor looked up as Amelia approached, wiping her hands on her apron. "Well, now, it is not often I get such a lovely visitor," she said, her voice gentle and welcoming. "You must be Amelia. Liam has told me all about you. Please come in for some iced tea. The sun is getting strong." Amelia felt an immediate sense of comfort in Eleanor's presence. The cottage was filled with the scent of baking bread and dried lavender. It felt like a safe haven. As they sat in a cozy kitchen, sipping tea from delicate, mismatched cups, Amelia found herself opening up. She did not mention the photograph, but she spoke of the gala, the cruel words, and the crushing judgment from her family and friends. She confessed her fears, her doubts, and the profound sense of being lost between two worlds. Eleanor listened patiently, her gaze never leaving Amelia's face. She did not offer pity or simple advice. When Amelia finished, her voice thick with emotion, Eleanor reached across the table and placed a gentle, wrinkled hand on hers. "My dear girl," she began softly, "the world is full of noisy people who measure life in dollars and shiny objects. They are terrified of anything real because it shows them how empty they truly are." She paused, looking out the window towards Liam's farm. "I have known Liam since he was a boy. His parents were the finest people you could ever meet. They taught him that a person's worth has nothing to do with the size of their bank account. They taught him about integrity, kindness, and hard work." Eleanor's eyes twinkled with a knowing light. "That boy has deeper roots than the oldest trees on this land. Do not judge a man by the dirt on his boots, my dear. Judge him by the goodness in his heart. And Liam's heart," she leaned in, her voice a warm whisper, "is solid gold." Eleanor's words were like a healing balm on Amelia's wounded spirit. They were a powerful affirmation of everything she had first felt for Liam. She was not crazy. Her love was not a foolish fantasy. It was real. The conversation did not answer the mystery of the photograph, but it answered a more important question. It settled the turmoil in her soul. Amelia left the cottage with a renewed sense of purpose. Her fear had been replaced by a quiet strength. She would no longer doubt her choice. She would trust her heart, and she would uncover the truth about the wonderful, mysterious man she loved. The annual Town Harvest Festival was in full swing. Families gathered on picnic blankets, the air filled with the scent of grilled corn and the sound of joyful music. For the first time since the gala, Amelia felt a sense of belonging. She stood beside Liam at a booth for his farm, offering fresh apple cider to their neighbors. She was laughing, her face glowing with genuine happiness, when a familiar, unwelcome shadow fell over them. It was Richard, flanked by Tiffany and Brianna. They looked comically out of place in their designer clothes, their faces masks of condescending curiosity. "I simply had to see this for myself," Richard announced, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Amelia Hart, the queen of the pumpkin patch. It is even more pathetic than I imagined." He gestured to the simple, happy scene around them. "This is what you chose? This little life? I am flying to Paris for dinner tonight. I came to make you one last offer, a ticket back to civilization. Leave this and farmer, and come back to a world where you belong." This time Amelia did not flinch. A calm, unshakable strength filled her. She looked Richard squarely in the eye, her voice clear and steady. "You still do not understand, do you, Richard?" she said, a small, sad smile on her lips. "I am not a prize to be won, and this life is not little. It is real. I have more happiness in one day here with Liam than I had in 5 years with you. So thank you for the offer, but I am already home." As her words hung in the air, a low hum began to vibrate through the ground. It grew steadily into a powerful, roaring sound that silenced the music and the chatter. Everyone turned their heads, their eyes scanning the clear blue sky. A sleek silver private jet soared into view, descending with breathtaking grace. It flew low over the festival, its powerful engines a stark contrast to the rustic setting, before banking and landing smoothly on a grassy airstrip on the far side of Liam's property, an airstrip Amelia now realized had been there all along. The crowd stared in stunned silence. Richard's jaw hung open, his arrogance momentarily forgotten. The jet's door opened, and a woman in a sharp pilot's uniform stepped out. She scanned the crowd, her eyes landing on Liam. "Mr. Sterling?" she called out, her voice crisp and professional. "The pre-flight checks are complete. We are cleared for departure to Geneva as scheduled." A collective gasp went through the crowd. The name Sterling was synonymous with Sterling Global, one of the largest and most innovative agricultural technology firms in the world. Richard's face went pale. He looked from the jet to the man in the simple clothes standing before him. Liam finally broke his silence, turning to Richard with a calm, unreadable expression. "I never told you I was poor, Richard," he said, his voice even. "You just assumed I was. This farm has been in my family for generations. I run my company from here because it keeps me connected to what actually matters." He then turned his back on Richard, his full attention focused on Amelia, his eyes soft and full of love. "I needed to know you saw me," he said gently. "Just me. Not a bank account or a family name." He held out his calloused hand. "Our jet is waiting. I believe you have always wanted to see the Swiss Alps in the autumn." Amelia looked at Liam's outstretched hand, the same strong, calloused hand that had fixed her car and held her through her darkest moments. Then she looked at Richard, his face a mask of utter disbelief and humiliation. A genuine, radiant smile spread across her face. This was not about the jet. This was not about the money. This was about the man who had shown her what true love and true strength looked like. Without a moment of hesitation, she placed her hand in Liam's. "I would love to see the Alps with you," she said, her voice filled with a joy so pure it seemed to light up the world around them. Together they turned and began to walk towards the waiting jet. The crowd of townspeople parted for them, their faces filled with awe and delight. They were not just watching a rich man, they were watching their friend, their neighbor, a man they had always respected, claim his happiness. The whispers that followed them now were not of pity for Amelia, but of admiration. It was a walk of pure vindication. Richard stood frozen, a statue of impotent fury. Tiffany and Brianna began to back away from him slowly, as if his spectacular humiliation were contagious. He was no longer a powerful figure to be admired. He was a fool who had publicly mocked a man far more successful and respected than himself. The power he wielded, built on arrogance and condescension, had evaporated in an instant. All that was left was a small, bitter man completely exposed. Just before they reached the jet, Liam paused. He turned, and his eyes found Eleanor in the crowd. A warm smile lit up his face, the same smile she had known since he was a boy. "Eleanor," he called out, "make sure everyone gets an extra slice of pie on me. We are celebrating." His words were a simple gesture, a confirmation to his community that he was, and always would be, one of them. Then, he and Amelia ascended the stairs and entered the luxurious aircraft. The door sealed behind them, shutting out the noise and the judgment of the world they were leaving behind. Through the window, Amelia saw Richard standing alone, a pathetic figure in the middle of a joyful crowd that no longer paid him any attention. A moment later, the jet's engines roared to life, and the ground fell away. As they soared into the endless blue sky, Amelia felt a profound sense of peace. She had not been rescued from a poor life. She had been rewarded for seeing the richness in a good man's heart. 2 years later, the old farmhouse was more vibrant than ever. It was still the same peaceful sanctuary, but now it was also a place of great purpose. Amelia and Liam had built a life that beautifully blended their two worlds. The farm was their home, the place they returned to after trips to Geneva, Tokyo, or Singapore. Liam still drove his old pickup truck around town, but now he also used his resources to revitalize the local community, funding a new library and upgrading the town's medical clinic. Amelia had found a calling she never knew she had. She established the Hearthstone Foundation, a non-profit organization that used the cutting-edge technology from Sterling Global to help small, independent farms thrive. She was no longer just a spectator in her own life. She was a creator, a leader, a partner to Liam in every sense of the word. She traveled the world not to attend parties, but to help people build better, more sustainable futures. Her passion and dedication earned her a respect that was far more rewarding than the shallow admiration she had once craved. She rarely thought of Richard. News from her old world traveled slowly, but she had heard that his reputation had never recovered from that day at the festival. His arrogance had eventually led to a series of bad business decisions, and the bright star of his success had faded into obscurity. The gossiping friends who had once orbited him had long since moved on to find another center of gravity. They were all just ghosts from a past that no longer felt like her own. One evening, as the sun set in a blaze of orange and purple, Amelia and Liam sat on their porch swing, the same one where they had shared their first glass of lemonade. His arm was around her, and her head rested comfortably on his shoulder. They were not talking about business deals or flight schedules. They were simply watching the fireflies begin to dance over the fields, their hearts full of a quiet, profound gratitude. Amelia looked at the man beside her, the farmer and the CEO. The man who owned a private jet, but was happiest with dirt on his hands. He was her partner, her best friend, her home. She had been laughed at for choosing the poor farmer, but she had ended up with the richest man she had ever known, rich in kindness, in integrity, and in a love that was as real and enduring as the land itself. Amelia and Liam's beautiful journey reminds us of a timeless truth. A person's real value is not found in the size of their bank account or the luxury of their possessions. It is measured in the quiet strength of their character, the depth of their kindness, and the integrity of their heart. It teaches us to look past the surface, to see the person and not the label. Their story is a powerful testament to the idea that true love does not see with the eyes but with the soul. We all have moments where we are judged, or where we ourselves judge others too quickly. It is a very human thing to do, but what if we chose to lead with empathy? What if we chose to see the gold in someone's heart instead of the brand of their clothes? We would love to hear your thoughts on this. Have you ever experienced a situation like this in your own life? A time when you were misjudged, or perhaps a time when you realized you had misjudged someone else? Share your story in the comments below. Your experiences and your wisdom are what make this community such a beautiful and supportive place. If this story of love and vindication touched your heart, please show your support by giving this video a thumbs up. Every single like helps us share these messages of hope and inspiration with more people around the world who might need to hear them. It tells us that these are the kinds of stories you want to see, stories that lift us up and remind us of the good in the world. And if you want to be sure you never miss another emotional story from the Legacy Chronicles, please consider subscribing to our channel. Do not forget to click the little notification bell next to the subscribe button. That way, you will be the first to know whenever we release a new video. We have so many more journeys to share, tales of resilience, forgiveness, and the incredible, unbreakable power of the human spirit. Thank you for spending your time with us today. We are so grateful to have you as part of our community. Until we meet again in our next story, remember to be kind, to listen with an open heart, and to always trust in the power of love.